Hello, everybody. Bienvenidos, Rink Rats, to another season of Rink Rat Hockey. We're excited to start off and talk about our lovely Chicago Blackhawks this year. The 2024-25 season preview. We are Season 8, Episode 1. Welcome back. It has been an awesome summer, but alas, training camp has begunneth. And we're all excited for Blackhawks season. Let's welcome the regulars back, guys. So good to see you again today. But a very special welcome to Ray Napientek. Hasn't been here in a while. Welcome back, Ray. What's going on, buddy? How have you been? What's new?
Nothing much, Andy. Thanks for having me. Excited to be back. Another season of Blackhawk hockey. Going to be a little bit more exciting, I think, this year. I don't know if we'll talk about it, about the outcomes of games, but they'll definitely be a little bit more watchable this year. So good to be here.
100%. And for those that don't know Ray's college football and college allegiance in general, he is an NIU Husky, and we do have him here as well as Sean Fitzgerald, who's wearing a Notre Dame t-shirt in light of the fact that that is one of the biggest upsets in college football history. Sean, are you still wounded by this? Or are you feeling good about the Hawks now and we're ready to move on past that?
I'm feeling good about the Hawks now. Congratulations to Northern Illinois. I will say that they had a hell of a game plan, played a hell of a game, and deserved that win. So no vitriol from me. Excited to talk about Blackhawks hockey and wearing a Minnesota College hockey of the Boochgrass variety tonight.
Excellent. Good gamesmanship, Sean. I appreciate the congratulatory remarks towards Ray. And we got a newlywed on the show, Jimmy O'Malley, who joined us last year, is now married. Congratulations, Jimmy. You got married a week ago?
13 days, so the over has hit. I'm sorry for all the people that lost money betting against me, but you can't bet against this guy.
No.
I'm a winner.
Well done. He's Charlie Sheen in Wall Street right there. He's a winner. Looking great. Well, congratulations, Jimmy. That's very exciting. Content editor, Eric Andrews, card collector extraordinaire. What's going on, buddy? How are things?
Things are going well. Excited for the new season, and it'll be interesting to see how things unfold.
Yeah,
very exciting. AJ Spellacy rookie card when it comes out.
AJ Spellacy for mayor of Chicago, folks, in case you haven't heard from any of the Twitter folks that support the Blackhawks in the age range of 20 to 25. AJ Spellacy and the rest of the Blackhawks prospects are already going to the Hall of Fame, which is really exciting. So believe everything you hear from from that fabric of personage on X, the artist formerly known as Twitter. And anyway, one quick shout out to the gatekeeper, Jeff Osborne, who is celebrating his wedding anniversary tonight. He could not be here. Co-founder of the Rink. Gate, we're thinking about you. Happy anniversary to you and your lovely bride. Hope you and your family are doing well. All right, let's talk some Hawks. Let's do it now. The Chicago Blackhawks, we're going to backtrack a little bit, but we want to start off with their latest news. Training camp started today. Nick Foligno has been appointed captain of the Blackhawks. Doesn't seem like there's any big surprises here in general. Ray, he's probably the biggest voice in the room right now. The right call in your eyes, would you say?
I agree. Yeah, I mean, he's going to be here for 2 years with that C on his chest. He's showing the guys, right, how to live, how to travel, what to do. It's tough, right? I mean, it's easy for us to say, hey, this is, how you're supposed to be a pro, but it's different than juniors. It's different than college. So he's the right pick. It'll be a perfect timing, right, when Connor steps in a couple years. So well-deserved. Again, it keeps him relevant in my eyes in the National Hockey League, but been around forever, right? It's definitely well-deserved.
Yeah, I agree. And Eric, I mean, for all the fans that are going, well, what about Connor Bedard right now? I mean, shouldn't Connor Bedard's focus be on the on-ice product?
It certainly should be. Yeah, there's no reason to rush him into that responsibility, especially given the team is still obviously, a few years away from really making any noise. So just let him focus on what he needs to be doing. And, Foligno can take on more of the vocal responsibilities and media responsibilities and things like that. Don't load on unnecessary responsibility onto Bedard's shoulders, especially given that he is still a new 19-year-old.
Right. Yeah. 19 for only 2 months or so right now. So, and Jimmy, I mean, this was Nick Foligno all the way. I mean, if you look back last year, I mean, he was essentially the captain. And I mean, with the sound bites and everything that he provided, he's always been very supportive. So.
Oh yeah, I mean, you could see just in anything you saw outside of the rink that the Blackhawks would put on social media, like the YouTube channel or Twitter, or Instagram. They would post just how much people just respected Nick Foligno. I think I saw a video today. It was from last year how Nick Foligno and Kevin Korchinski were going at it in a preseason drill, and how he was basically just giving Korchinski the business, but afterwards tapping him on the back, tapping the boards, and that's just a leader does. He leads these young players to become better. And I agree. I mean, there's no reason to give this responsibility to Connor Bedard quite yet. Make him the 36th captain, not 35th. He's not ready there. He has respect of his peers, but he's not going to garner the respect of a 35-year-old plus player. He just doesn't have that weight yet. He'll get there, but he needs a couple more years to marinate under Nick Foligno.
Very true. Very true. No, I agree with that 100%. I mean, you may as well have plopped the C on him last year. I know that they were kind of, waiting it out a little bit to see, they were just going to go captainless for a year. I don't know. Part of that might have been, Jonathan Toews, quote unquote, taking a year off.
Toews. Like it was, we're not going to name a captain. We're going to. It's an homage to Toews. Let him have the year, decide what he wants to do. We're not going to name a captain for a year, so everybody still remembers Jonathan Toews as the captain. And Toews was captain for 15 years.
Yeah,
he was captain from 2008 to 2023. And then piggybacking off what everybody else said, there was a story that came out last year. I believe when Connor Bedard broke his jaw.
Yep.
And was at home that night. Nick Foligno, his wife, and I think his dog went over to his apartment and brought him soup because he couldn't eat. And he didn't have anyone. So he was there being almost the father figure to Connor Bedard during that time. And piggybacking too, you don't want to name Connor Bedard the young 19-year-old captain after Jonathan Toews, who was already named captain at such a young age. There'll just be too much noise about that. Just let Foligno be captain for 2 years. He's been a captain in the NHL before, and just keep it moving.
Really good call, that. Yeah. It's interesting. I also, when Connor Bedard did break his jaw, I think it was Brendan Smith that hit him. I can't remember who hit him off the top. Smith, yeah. It was not a dirty hit. We've been over this a million times, but and Foligno knew that. But I love how he went into the face-off in the second period and just looked at him and goes, you owe me one now, right? We're gonna do this, So, always standing up for his teammates. A good guy, good Chicago guy that we would like to have around. Well, good stuff. Congratulations to Nick Foligno. You're the right one for the job with this team and probably for the next 2 years. I would also, I don't see a scenario right now where if the Blackhawks are out of the playoff picture where they trade Nick Foligno this spring. I mean, it almost seems like that he will be around for 2 more years. Does everyone concur with that? I don't know if you want to throw the C on someone else next year. I mean, I think a 2-year term, both contractually and with the C, kind of makes sense.
Yeah, you're not giving him the C unless that's the plan.
Right. Sounds good. All right, cool. So let's backtrack a little bit we're going to talk about prospect camp, but you can't talk about prospect camp without addressing what the Blackhawks did in the draft. Again, this might seem eons ago, but it's important to talk about just to recognize where they are and what's going on. For those of you that do not remember, Kyle Davidson, for the second time in 3 years, moved up in the draft to make sure that the Blackhawks had 3 first-round picks, trading 2 second-rounders, the 37th overall and the 50th overall, to the Carolina Hurricanes to acquire the 27th overall pick in the draft. And they also made that trade in May with the Islanders moving from 20 to 18, 20th overall to 18th overall, and then they had the second overall pick. The hotly contested second overall pick, which we all agreed was going to be Artem Levshunov at the end of the day, and that ended up delivering. Now, considering that he's injured, he's going to miss a considerable amount of time. It sounds like he might miss up to 6 weeks. Rockford bound all the way after that, Ray? I mean, he kind of has to be, right?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, even just the speed of the game, learning right. I think. Well, I would have been, even if he had a good camp, it was still, hey, let's go to Rockford. Something we couldn't do with Korchinski last year. They couldn't do with him last year. So,
right.
And especially now getting injured, you get him some time. He can make mistakes, get on the ice, learn a pro game.
Right.
The different, the speed, the different talent. they're grown men, man. I think a lot of people overlook that. You know, I mean,
Right.
you talk about guys like an Adam Boquist and people that we've kind of rushed in the past, where it's like these are little kids. You know, right, not Chicago, but Jack Hughes, man, he was a little kid when he was.
Yeah, he was a baby. Yep.
Now Artie's a lot bigger than him, but he's still a kid. You know, so I think heading down to Rockford would definitely be, even if he was healthy, that would be my plan for him. But definitely with him missing some time.
Yeah, Eric, were you surprised at all that he did not return for his sophomore year at Michigan State? That that they signed him as quickly as they did. I, for one, was at the time. I thought, and we had talked before, when they pick him, he might just go back to the Big Ten. But Kyle Davidson has been pretty clear, and I mean, he was quoted the other day as saying that the best development path for our hockey club, we want to make Rockford, period. But were you surprised at the time, and do you still think this is a good move to sign him now?
It didn't shock me. I mean, I think ultimately what it really comes down to is they know that having someone in the organization allows them to have more of an impact on his development than if he was anywhere else.
Yeah.
So I think that's really why they made the decision. And of course, another thing with that too is when you have a player who is clearly at the top of the talent pool at the level he's playing, the last thing you want is for him to go back and then establish bad habits because he's so much better than everybody else.
Mm-hmm.
So by going to the AHL, that's going to force him to continue developing and growing good habits and things like that. So I think, kind of just across the board, it makes a lot of sense.
Okay. Yeah.
And obviously physically he's ready to play pro hockey as well.
Right. Yeah. And I mean, their D depth too in Rockford with young talent, it seems to be getting a little bit more abundant. So it will be a good spot for him. Jimmy, a question for you on the other two picks, the Sasha Boisvert from the USHL, who's headed to Nodak, headed to North Dakota. So you won't see him in any prospect camps. And then the Marek Vanacker pick, when they traded and they kind of, said to get into the first round, Marek Vanacker was not projected to go in the first round. He wasn't supposed to be that high. A lot of people, Kyle Davidson saw him a lot, obviously, while watching Nick Lardis. They're playing on the same junior team. But talk to us about these guys, Jimmy. How did you feel about these picks when they happened at the time? And do you think we've got something here? It's obviously going to take a little bit of time for development. But what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I like these guys. Well, as you know, I really liked Michael Hay going to the draft. I made that pretty obvious. But Sasha Boisvert was probably number 2 on that list for me all offseason at that 18th spot. And there's a good reason for that. I mean, he offers, I think one thing you can look at these 3 first-round picks, and you just see just size. Artem Levchinov was 6'2", 205.
Right.
Sasha was 6'2", 183. And then Marek was 6'1", 178. I mean, these guys are just some physical size at a very young age that is just, you could very much grow on. And Boisvert and Vanacker, you just look at and you think two-way game. These guys are great at the back check, great at filling positions both on the offensive side and defensive side of the ice. And, I mean, I think that's why I like these kids a lot more than Yzerman. A lot of people wanted Yzerman. I did not. I think Yzerman was just useless in 2.
There were red flags all over that guy.
Oh, yeah. I thought he was useless in 2/3 of the ice. I was like, this guy, great shot. Can't use him anywhere.
Yeah,
I mean,
it's Oliver Wallstrom right there.
Yeah, that's how I felt. It's just, I didn't hear much about personality, but just play style. I was like, I'm not sold on this guy. But Sasha and Marek, they offer, I would say, if you look at these guys at their peak, they're middle 6 forwards on deep playoff teams that just play all over the ice. You can trust them on the power play and penalty kill, and you hope they can continue to develop. And you mentioned Vanacker seemed like a little bit of a reach. And I think what shocked me, and I think also shocked KD, Kyle Davidson, was this guy played half the season with a torn labrum, and he still produced at what was, an early second-round pick. Imagine this kid's healthy, not dealing with a very devastating shoulder injury for the last half of the season. So there's something projectable there.
Yeah, no, that's a good take. And they obviously saw him a lot too. They like and he sounds like a tough kid. I think Kyle Davidson in these drafts, he's been very consistent with his theme with forwards in general. And you saw it a little bit later in the draft, Shawnee, in the 3rd round when they got into the 67th and the 72nd overall picks. They took John Mustard and now the famous AJ Spellasy or Spellasy.
I say it's going to be the opposite. So
right. So yeah. So we'll learn how to say it by how you say it indirectly. But anyway, I mean, these guys are flyers. Obviously, AJ Spellacy made a ton of noise in the prospect camp. Maybe a little bit of overreactions, but what do you think about what's going on here?
Everyone said he sticks to the formula of what Cal Davidson likes. He likes speed and he likes size, and that's what he's been drafting, and that's his formula. And he's been upfront and honest with us and told us that the minute he took over, I want to build a team that has speed and has size and can play two ways, and that's what Spellacy and John Mustard have. Let's also, going back, let's also not forget that Cal Davidson also tried to pull off a blockbuster trade that came out later where he tried to move back up to Columbus's pick and take Ivan Demidov.
Yeah.
So Cal Davidson, like, he has a formula of what guys he wants, but he was also swinging big in this draft. Like, he was trying to get a top-rate forward and a top-flight defenseman. I think he did well with his draft picks in this one. So we'll see how they develop, though. It's good to draft talented guys. Got to develop them now.
You know, the Demidov thing, we're never going to hear the end of. We're going to hear about it from years. Demidov is probably going to go to Montreal and become a star. I mean, I think that there's a very likely chance that happens. You know, Montreal is kind of the Blackhawks doppelganger of the East right now. I mean, they're retooling. They're going to be really, really fun to watch. I think they'll be a little bit better than the Blackhawks will be this year. But at the same time, you can't just go all skill guys all the time. You know, if you're a Chicago sports follower, you learned it last weekend with the Chicago Bears, for instance. You know, if you don't develop interior linemen, you don't develop defense, you got to pay attention to those things. So the Demidov thing, I'm sure we're going to hear about for years from Hawk fans. But if somehow KD's plans resonate in a Stanley Cup, you know, I'm not going to say multiple because that's just really, really hard to do and set your expectations accordingly. But if they end up becoming a winner out of this, who cares, I guess, in a sense.
I think when you get a chance to get your 1D guy, right, that's going to
got to do it
back end for 25 minutes a night in big time hockey and size, streets, you know, skate. He does it all. I mean, and when you're looking at like a winger, you're looking at some of these talented guys. I mean, you know, Patrick Kane wins Stanley Cups, right, as the number one pick on the wing. Ovechkin's, you know, finally, you know, won one. You know, but man, you're looking to build down the middle, which he has. He's getting some size. He's getting some speed around those guys. But when you got Artie, that's your guy that you think is going to be your 1D man for the next dozen years.
Yeah, I agree. And I mean, we've said this over and over again. And Eric, you and I have tweeted about this ad nauseum. You know, but
Knights came out and said this year they're building with their dominant blue line, and that's what they're going to focus on. And that's what you need. You need dominant centers and a dominant blue line. And that's, I think, what Cal Davidson's philosophy is. Yeah,
it's just kind of the way it works in the NHL right now.
Too, let's think about like Rockford, like why they wanted Artie in Rockford. I mean, Alex Vlasic spent a whole year there, and look at the jump he made. Ethan Del Mastro's made a little bit of a jump, and he spent time in Rockford. Like the development pipeline in Rockford is seeming to have results, at least on the defensive side of the ice.
Well, yeah, and it's going to get better and better. And we should talk about that. I mean, let's talk about prospect camp right now. I think that there are going to be a number of Blackhawk fans that are hoping for instant results from these prospects, and it's just not realistic. It's just not. I mean, you hear about the Misiaks, the Nick Lardises. I mean, even the Frank Nazers right now. I mean, some people will go as far to spend their entire summer showing us highlights of Frank Nazer from his 2-game sample. And those will be tweeted out, and controlled aggression and different NHL terms that we haven't really tapped into too much. But at the same time, Eric, Frank Nazar, he could start in Rockford. I mean, it's almost likely that he starts the season in Rockford, is it not? In Rockford.
I think he should. I mean, there's no reason to rush him. It's not like you're trying to go out and win anything this year.
Right.
So let him get that full season of pro hockey under his belt, adjust to the pro game. Some people want to think that he's already adjusted after 3 games. He's not. So yeah, just let him marinate. Like, there's no reason that he needs to be the guy now.
Yeah. I mean, so it's still going to take a while. And this is why the Blackhawks went out and Kyle Davidson picked up all these other players. He picked up grown men, experienced adults, so he can actually, have kids develop in Rockford. Think about it. Scott Powers in July when looking at some of these pickups that the Hawks made at the UFA deadline, he reminded fans the 2007-2008 Rockford Ice Hogs, when the Blackhawks were trying to get back into the picture after the dead puck era and the really dark years. Those names on that roster, those regulars included names Corey Crawford, Brian Bickle, David Bolin, Nicholas Jalmerson, Dustin Bufflin, Troy Brower, Christopher Stieg, and Colin Fraser.
Not bad.
Those are real hockey players.
Yeah.
Yeah. Those are Stanley Cup winning hockey players with the Blackhawks. That 2007-2008 season were in Rockford pretty much for the season. So we're kind of that formula moving ahead. So, just be patient, folks. Be patient. Let's talk about some of these new ads. Tyler Bertuzzi, Teuvo Teravainen, Ilya Mitchkev, who's wearing number 95, I believe. Pat Maroon, Craig Smith is in town. 35-year-old Craig Smith, one last shot at this. Alec Martinez, TJ Brody in the back. And I'm going to screw this one up. Sean, you should be saying this, not me. Laurent Brassoit, a goalie. Jimmy, out of all these guys, what do you think is the best ad right now? And who is going to be in a position to help out the forwards the most? Who do you like on the back end? Talk to us, Jimmy. Your floor.
I think the easy answer for who I like most is obviously Teuvo Teravainen. This guy left Chicago at a very young age, right after winning the Cup in 2015. And
he was traded.
Oh, yeah. Left, traded. Come on.
He was the sweetener in the Bickle trade.
They'll play semantics with me, all right? But yeah, I mean, I think Teuvo can come in and play anywhere in the top six. He can pair up with Connor Bedard, or he could pair up with the second line. Maybe if Nazar comes back up later in the year, you pair him up there and have a guy for Nazar to play off of. I think he's going to be very, very malleable, I believe is the word I want to look for. You could put him anywhere.
Good. Whatever. Yeah, you used it well enough where it checks out. Yeah.
Thanks. Yeah. A law major, not an English major. But yeah, I like Teuvo a lot. And same goes for Bertuzzi. I like his toughness and his skill that can be put on the first line. Yeah. On the defensive end, I mean, I love Alec Martinez. I mean, I know he broke our hearts back in 2014, but I remember seeing his intro interview when he got signed to the Hawks, and he talked about being very excited to be here, being a guy a lot of the young defensemen can learn off of, and just be a leader for this team later in his career. And you always love to have older guys that are pretty skilled, want to come to a team like Chicago and want to teach young players, and that's what I see in Alec Martinez.
Yeah. No, I like him too. I think Brody's pretty good too. I mean, obviously, older players that are signing one-year contracts well above their pay grade for one AAV, but what else do you have to sell those guys on other than money? I mean, so that's kind of where we are right now. Ray, I got a question for you. What does this mean? I mean, if you look at the Blackhawks' top 5 defensemen right now, if you were to look at it on paper, one might say Jones, Vlasic, Murphy, Martinez, and Brody. Mm-hmm. Where does that leave Kevin Korchinski? Is he the 6th defenseman as of right now? Or who is the 6th defenseman? And what happens to Kevin? Is Rockford his destination to start the season?
Oh, boy, if I was a betting man, no. But right. Probably should be. I think if I was in charge of player development, he would be down there. Last year was a nightmare for the kid. And there's rules, there's things I know, don't want to send him back, can't go to AHL. It was a nightmare for the kid. Does he have talent? Absolutely. Could he be an offensive power play guy for the Hawks for a long time? Absolutely. But it was a nightmare watching him. And that's where, like, Bedard, when some of the older guys got hurt, knucklehead, having problems and not on the team anymore, he didn't have the talent to play with where, that defense was just – but then they were losing games 2-1, 2-0, and it was like, man, if they just had, maybe somebody offensively. I think defensively they're going to be in a much better spot where, Korchinski can head down to the AHL, make mistakes in front of nobody, learn the game, get the speed, work on getting faster, making better decisions, learning how to carry the puck out of the zone a little bit better.
Yeah.
Not a hot potato, right? It was a hot potato as an 18-year-old, right?
Yeah,
so,
sure. Yeah.
I think a lot of it, and that's where, like you guys were talking about, where, Martinez and Brody come in, they're that. They're the guys that can play in front of the net. They could play in the corners. They're going to kill some penalties and take some of that pressure off. So I think Del Mastro can be there. I'm not really high on Nolan Allen, but he's somebody that can be there. So I think if I was a betting man, I'd say yes, he's going to be there.
Yeah,
I'd hate to see him be the healthy scratch guy.
Right. I mean, even if like Isaac Phillips is not in your long-term plans, I would almost rather him be with the big club for a little while.
Correct.
AKA Creever.
Yeah. Oh my God, Eric, are you catching Ray's frisbee? I agree with every single thing he said, but I mean, I was certainly, I wanted to see Korchinski up. Oh, I was wrong. He's too good for the WHL, and then they kept him around, and it really did not work out.
Yeah, no, I agree with everything Ray said there. I think everything makes sense for him to be in Rockford and learn how to play the pro game and just get comfortable playing the pro game, play in all situations with a little bit less pressure than if he was in the NHL. That said, I still feel that he probably makes the team out of camp. Whether he plays all 82 in Chicago, not so sure. He might kind of go up and down throughout the year. We'll see. But I would, if I had to put money on it, I would say he starts in Chicago. Was he ready to play last year? No, obviously not. But at the end of the day, he still did get all of that experience. So there's kind of then the question of, well, he has all that experience now. So is it going to be a step back to go down to the AHL instead of just trying to build off of what you had last year? I think that's kind of where they're leaning right now. But if like Ray said, if it was my choice, he'd be in Rockford playing with Levshinov all year.
Right. I mean, where does Wyatt Kaiser fit into all this?
Who?
Well, I don't. Yeah, where's our buddy?
Pope.
Does Ben Pope want to retweet his article from this time last year on how amazing Wyatt Kaiser is? And anyway, I mean, but Kaiser's another one where it's like, okay, if your longer term solution is Korchinski being a bigger part of it, I mean, fine, give Kaiser more time upstairs. I think Kaiser's going to play for a lot of professional hockey teams.
Yeah.
Yeah. And if he's the guy that's playing 11, 12, 13 minutes a night, I'd rather it be him and have Korchinski playing 20, 22 minutes a night.
Well, and with that too, then if somehow Wyatt becomes the next great thing, awesome. That's a bonus. But
everybody wins.
Don't hold your breath for that happening. But I mean, like Ray said, if you're going to be playing in a limited role, have it be a guy that you're not heavily invested in for the long term.
Well, and then you have Ethan Del Mastro, who was an all-star last year in Rockford. Yeah. He's an AHL all-star. I mean, maybe he's one of the surprise guys out of camp that people think maybe he
let him keep marinating.
Yeah. And to me, he's got size, but he's responsible. I think,
right.
When you look at projectability and that's what the kind of when we're going back to the draft, where it's like, man, he's got some high ceiling guys, but then he had some guys where it's like, that floor is a lot higher, and it's like, all right, he's got that nice mix. And like Sean said, he's got that mix of skill and he's got that mix of size, and he wants everybody to have speed. You got to be able to skate in this league. Del Mastro was just that kid last year in Rockford. I thought every time he was on the ice, he was making good decisions. He was responsible. He was able to throw his weight around a little bit. I mean, he's not Chara, but I mean, he's somebody where you're just like, when he would finish the game, you're just like, I always use this example. He's Eric Weinrich. I'm not saying he's going to turn into a pro for that long, but when Weinrich was on the ice and you didn't notice,
he was fine.
He was a PP. When you did notice him, it's because he was bad. And that's where Del Mastro was he was just a responsible hockey player last year.
Yeah. What do you think of Nolan Allen? I mean, might he be able to see a little bit of time? I mean, I guess what you just really want to avoid is Mrazek can't see as many shots as he did last year. You don't want to be running around, to your point, Ray. You need to be responsible and a little bit more controlled in your own zone, which they just didn't have at any point last year. And maybe even Nolan Allen's one of those guys that could have a few cups of coffee.
Yeah, he's the typical stay-at-home defenseman, right? Not a lot of speed, doesn't contribute much offensively, but stays at home, knows to play on his own end, stuff like that. So,
I mean, I hate to give him the benefit of the doubt because he's a stand pick. But Stan's
gonna deliver a cup to Edmonton. Just watch.
Yeah. Oh boy. Well, hey, so listen. So today, when they started out camp, obviously the lines are going to be mixed up a lot, but I think it was Bedard, Bertuzzi, and a healthy Taylor Hall. That could be interesting. And then they had the tiny line. It was Kurashev, Reichel, and Teravainen, which will strike fear into the hearts of all that they play against. So I don't see that sticking. But anyway, I'm sure they're mixing and matching, and it should be a fun experiment. They play next Wednesday night against Detroit, who have their new RFA signees all ready to roll all of a sudden.
I think we can watch that on television. I think we have to listen to that one on the radio, if I remember correctly.
They'll be streaming it on the website.
Okay,
Yeah, well, that works.
with no sound, right?
Yeah.
Foley and Talon should do it on the radio.
There you go. Tell me about this. The guy that I'm so curious is to see is the Ilya Michkev. If that's how you pronounce his last name. Sorry to Ilya if I'm botching that. We'll all figure it out. But so they picked him up via trade, I believe, for the rights of Sam Lafferty, and then Sam Lafferty signed elsewhere. And there was some other thing, and then it was like a 2027 fourth round pick or fifth round pick or something like that. It's how they picked him up. But he seems like, kind of like the next Taylor Radish type guy, where you're so hopeful that he's going to do a lot of stuff, and then he's just had a disappointing career. I know nothing about this guy. Someone help me shed some light. What can we expect from Michkev? Because he's kind of like this. Pat Maroon, you're like, yeah, this guy will come in and, ruffle some feathers, and there'll be a game where it'll be like the Pat Maroon game because he throws a few body checks and they win a game and he picks up a secondary assist, and everyone will be like, yeah, Pat Maroon. And then it'll be back to planet Earth. Bertuzzi's going to be impact. Teravainen's going to be impact. What's the scoop on this kid? Who knows?
Well,
the numbers, and then I'll let Eric talk because he knows more than I do.
True facts.
10-ish goals a season.
Okay, thank you, Sean. Eric, tell us more.
Yeah. Well, I'll begin. It's Mikheyev.
Mikheyev, thank you.
For those wondering.
Thank you.
Chicken Mikheyev.
I'm curious to see what he can do. I mean, he's a guy who kind of started his career producing a bit more, especially in Toronto. I forget if he might have hit 30 goals one year. If not, he was definitely in the 20s.
21, 22.
Yeah, so he has produced notably in the NHL before, and then has kind of just struggled with inconsistency and injuries over the last couple of years. But yeah, he's definitely an interesting guy. I think a lot of it's going to come down to where he is in the lineup and who he's playing with, as far as kind of determining what that production is really going to look like. But it is a guy that you can kind of plug and play in a variety of roles, and I think that's definitely a valuable thing for this team to have. Yeah,
and he's going to play. I mean,
yeah, he's an NHLer for sure.
He's an NHL hockey player. Taylor Hall will play a max of 60 games. So he could.
You say 60 or 16?
Yeah, 6-0, but 16 is.
Put over the blue line, and it'll be over.
If someone said 16, I would believe it. So that's interesting. But yeah, I mean, he's going to play. He's going to contribute. So hopefully, in the right situation. Andreas Anastasiou is back. Someone tweeted the other day. Someone tweeted today, Jimmy. He looks like he's in mid-season form. What does that mean? I mean, that is the most open for interpretation tweet about a hockey player of that caliber.
That just means a mid-season form of AA is just skating faster than everyone ever, and then shooting the puck 5 feet left of the goal.
Yeah, it's 100 miles an hour at all times with no plan.
Yeah, and just hearing the loudest board hit ever because the puck just whacks it, and you hear it reverberate 15 blocks away. That is mid-season Andre Athanasiou form. 100 miles per hour, 100 miles wide.
Yeah, exactly. I'm not expecting very much from. I mean, he might see some second line duty, some third line duty. The other player that I want to throw on that, Jason Dickinson had a really good season last year, and he brings to the table a lot of qualities that I think that, as far as being a defensive pivot, a responsible forward, take care of your end of the ice, make sure puck possession is a key ingredient. I actually think that with this team, he's could even have a better season than he did last year. Now, I'm not saying Dickinson for Selke, like some people were. You can't win the Selke on a cellar dweller. It just doesn't connect. But he could be super helpful this year. Any thoughts on JD?
Absolutely. I thought, well, last year, Bedard, but there were times where he was probably, on some nights, he was the best forward on the ice. Yeah. And I thought that 2 years ago when everybody was like, man, he's kind of new. Who is this guy? And I'm like, he's playing some of the best hockey out there. Now, yes, you're just a god-awful hockey team, but he was sometimes the best forward on the ice. And I thought last year even he was sometimes the best forward on the ice. Not the most talented, but he was playing good hockey. So he's somebody where, man, you'd love him if he was your fourth line guy, but if he was getting third or second line minutes this year, it wouldn't be the end of the world for me. He's a solid National Hockey League player.
Yeah, I mean, this is a guy, like, just for perspective, Blackhawks fans. This is a guy who was a late first round pick, who played almost 200 games in the NHL, in the AHL.
Yeah, he's not going to fire away. I'm not going to say he's going to score more than 22.
To take time to develop, and we're talking about third round picks being next generation players, and it just doesn't.
Right. And to me, if he's somebody that can hit double digits goals, if he's 15 goal guy, you're happy with it.
Oh, I'm having a computer meltdown here. Sorry.
You're computer skating like Marty LaPointe, man.
Yeah, no, that'd be great. That'd be huge. Cool. Say that again. You always start with a muffle. You might need to start that again.
Hard to find good help these days.
Brossotti, how do you say it, Eric? Is he hurt? How long is he out for?
Well, it's Laurent Brossoit, first of all. Yeah, he had surgery for an injury that he picked up over the summer, and it sounds like, kind of depending on the timeline, how quickly he is able to get back, maybe like first or second week of the season, maybe third if they're a little bit more cautious with him. So he'll miss all of training camp and all the preseason, which is fine. He's a guy that, you know what you're going to get out of him. He's been one of the most reliable backups in the league for a few years now. So he's, definitely a guy that's going to provide a lot for this team, just giving you that, sense of, surety, I guess, if you want to use that word in terms of your backup goalie. Whereas last year, you could pretty much assume you were losing that game when your backup goalie was on the ice last year. So, he'll be out for a little bit, but, shouldn't miss too much time. Maybe Soderblom gets in a game or two at the start of the season, but shouldn't be that big of a deal.
I had him taken over from Mrazek November 11th. With the injury, I'll probably push it back to December 1st. Mrazek will be sitting on the bench more than he will be.
Could be, yeah, for sure.
Soderblom gave up at least 5 goals a game, I think, in all but 2 starts that he made last season. So
sounds about right.
Be an interesting mix too down at Rockford with Comesso, Soderblom, Mitchell Weeks will probably still be down there.
He'll be in Indy, I'm sure, but yeah. Then they've got Ben Goudreau, who they brought in on an AHL deal this year, kind of a reclamation project. He was a decent draft pick of the San Jose Sharks a few years ago, and just kind of not found his way yet. I thought he looked good in the one prospect game that he played, but again, it's a prospect game. It doesn't really mean anything, but he did at least look pretty composed in that. So, that's encouraging for an AHL guy. So, Andy texted me a few minutes ago, saying to transition into our predictions for the season, since his computer is a disaster. He'll attempt to join us again in a few minutes here, but yeah, I guess we'll jump into the predictions. If we'll go around the horn here, predictions for, let's say, not only just the season where they finish, and then if anybody has kind of like a specific prediction for a player or anything like that. We'll start with Ray and go around the horn here.
Now, let me start with what I think about Andy first. No,
that's good. I like to hear that prediction.
I got a lot of problems with you people. You're going to hear about it.
I think they're going to finish last in the division. I still think they're 10 to 15 points, maybe behind the Blues, or trying to think who's going to finish it towards the next one. To me, it's just not close. I still think they're probably, if everything comes out, they're still the 5th or 6th pick, right? I mean, not ping pong balls aside. So, but for me, I think it's going to be an improvement overall. There's going to be more depth. I think that having those defensive veterans, as long as they stay healthy, like you said, the goalie's not giving up 5 goals every game on his backup duty, and then when you are struggling offensively, the guys are getting hurt. But I still see him at the bottom, and I think again, for me, Kurashev, I've got to see that he wants to play 200 feet. If there was a prediction for me and say, hey, and I don't care about plus minus. We are right that's completely useless on a bad hockey team, or even a good hockey team. But I need to see him more than just what he's been showing us. I know guys like him. I know he shot the lights out. I know some nights he looked great. But man, I want to see the consistency level where you're just like, this kid can absolutely do it every night. To say that's a projection, I don't know what the projection would be, but I want to see his consistency for his development. Hi, Andy.
Hi, Ray. You can tell everyone what you think of me now.
Oh, you're a really nice guy. You're a really nice guy with a lot more hair than I ever had. So,
thanks.
Absolutely.
Sorry, folks. New computer's on the way, I swear. Eric, continue. We're doing season predictions and player predictions. Who's up?
Yeah, I can go next.
All right.
Yeah, I think it's obviously you're hoping to see some growth in terms of the the overall team point production this year. But as far as the standings, I mean, again, let's remember the Blackhawks were in last in the Central Division by 25 points last year.
Yeah.
Not 25 points out of the playoffs, 25 points out of 7th place in the Central Division. So even if you tack on another 10 wins, you're still in last place in the division. So, yeah, I mean, are they going to have some growth? Yeah. I mean, it's pretty hard to get less than 52 points in the NHL. So yeah, maybe you do.
They had 47 last year.
So, well, true, but maybe end up somewhere in the 70s, maybe even you touch the low 80s. That's great. But again, you're probably still going to be picking somewhere, 5th, 6th, 7th. So this coming season is not the year where you're really taking that big step. So right. Yeah, I would say, let's shoot for like 75 points. Anything above that would be great. Individually, I'm going to be really optimistic and say that Taylor Hall plays more games than he misses.
Ooh. Okay. Not bad. So if he plays 44, you're in great shape.
And I will say last season, my prediction in that regard was I believe that Mrazek would, I forget the exact number, but I know I hit the over on whatever I predicted for Mrazek. So
60-some games, I think, the most since he's with Toronto or Carolina. I can't remember.
Does that include the Worlds or no?
Does not.
Jimmy, what do you think, man? Predictions.
I feel like I've been just so much more pessimistic than a lot of Hawks fans. Maybe even in our group chat, I might be the most pessimistic. I still think this team is comfortably bottom 5 in the league.
Yeah.
But I see them more at like the 4-5 range than the 1-2 range. I just think this team has just a lot of room to grow. It's just there's still going to be a ton of young players going through growing pains, and there's going to be ugly games at times. But what I am optimistic about, I think the defensive game is just going to be a little better. Goaltending game is going to be a little better. I think we're going to see a lot more, 3-2 losses and like 4-3 losses rather than the usual 5-1, 6-2 losses that we had this year. Some of these games that by the time the third quarter is coming around, you're just like, all right, I'm turning this off. It's over. This is boring. I'm not having fun. I feel like we're going to have just more fun losses, I think is the best way to put it. So, yeah, I still think bottom 5 in the league, probably picking around 4 or 5. But a lot of the young guys are going to make a lot of improvements. I think that's a couple good ones. And when it comes to player predictions, I got a couple. I think I'm a little more optimistic about Taylor Hall than a lot of people are. I think Taylor Hall is going to garner around a first or second round pick at the trade deadline this year. Yeah. He's going to look pretty productive. He's on his last year's contract. I think competing teams are going to see him. He's going to have a pretty healthy first half of the season, get like 15 goals by the time the trade deadline comes around. And teams going, you know what? I need that scoring touch on my third line. Taylor Hall has been healthy this year. I can offer up a second round pick for this guy. Chicago, take the call. So that's my big, bold Taylor Hall prediction. And my last prediction is a prospect one. I think this year's Slaggert and Nazar, this year's like cup of coffee guys at the end of the year, get 3-4 games. They're going to be like, I'm going to say Oliver Moore and Colton Dock are going to be our cup of coffee guys. They're going to get 3 to 4 games at the end of the season, play a little bit. We're going to see a little bit of games, and I'll be bold. Oliver Moore gets his first goal, first NHL goal.
I like that.
Yeah,
that's a good take. Boy, and Colton Dock, he's been feisty. Prospect.
Yeah, he's looked good in prospect camp. Yeah. I think we'll see a little bit of him in Chicago.
Yeah, someone clearly told him, "Hey, kid, you want a shot at this? You got to Andrew Shaw it up here. Let's get going. Let's get an edge to you." Love it. Good prediction, Shawnee. What say you?
70 points. Like everyone said, better games, but still losses.
Yeah.
My bold prediction, though, is Lucas Reichel is no longer a part of the Blackhawks organization by season's end.
Who?
Yeah, that's another player we haven't even talked about tonight. No one knows what to say.
I think they're gonna trade him for nothing. And
a new Joe shirt?
Yeah. Something like that, because there's no room for him at Rockford, and if he can't figure it out at the NHL level, he's gonna be an AHL guy for the rest of his North American hockey career until he goes overseas and plays in Germany or wherever the Swiss leagues.
They should trade him.
30. Go ahead, Eric. Sorry.
They should trade him for Alex Nylander.
Oh, jeez. No, but I think as
Reichel explosion with Columbus at the end of the year. I think.
I think as Reichel nears 30, you might see him, the Marcus Kruger like exit and just play in Europe for a few years, and that's about it. That I don't know. It's going to be such a fascinating thing with him. I have zero expectations for anything other than him just being a rink turning passenger. Never stopping on a puck, just rink turn. But we'll see.
Well, I mean, it's kind of an interesting conversation. I mean, what do you do with him?
I don't know.
Like he can't play on the fourth line.
No,
there's no room for him anymore in the top
third
six.
line. Yeah,
he's the sweetener in the Taylor Hall trade. That's right.
There you go. That's where you get your first.
Virtually no cap hit. So if somebody wants to give, if Columbus or somebody like that wants,
Stan will pick him up.
Well, he might.
And Luke Richardson, bless him, tried everything last year with this kid.
Last year,
he tried everything with him to try to jumpstart him, to try to get him going, and it just wasn't clicking. I mean, if you're recognized for speed and hands and offense, and you're not doing those things, and you're not physically developed enough to play a checking role, I don't know if you really have a spot in the league.
Yeah, and what's tough too is as fans, he was probably drafted 30 spots too early.
Yeah, 100%.
You can't blame the kid for that. He was always going to kind of be in that range, and that's fine. You could kind of carve out a career maybe that way, or give yourself a little bit more time because you weren't 17. You were 35, 40, 50. I think he was picked 17th. Where again, you get maybe yourself a little bit more time, get yourself developed. Stan doesn't, right? He's your pick. It was, I still go back to that night and I was like, oh, yeah, he's got the pedigree. He can skate a little bit. Watched him in Germany. He's good along the boards. He was able to kind of control the puck a little bit, which you don't do in the National Hockey League. You got to find that next guy and then get to the spot. It's tough. I think it wasn't fair to the kid on that night.
No.
And we're kind of seeing it right now. I hope he goes out and scores 25. That'd be great, right?
Rooting for him. Rooting for him for
it's
sure.
just like, man, it wasn't fair to that kid on that night, I thought. And
he's the current generation Dylan Sekura.
Yeah, there you go. Mm-hmm. There you go. Well, Shawnee, I think that was a less bold and potentially more accurate prediction than your last year. Taylor Radish is going to have a 25-goal season.
Yep, you're never going to let that one go. He couldn't score in a brothel.
Never letting that go. No.
He couldn't score in a brothel.
That's all right. Just all you got to do is bring up Alec Regula at some point and be like, Andy, remember that guy? Yeah, I was way too high on that guy. Yeah.
Did you mean just 25 goals maybe like in Europe in a few years? Or?
In fairness, Sean, you did not.
Yeah,
you did not put parameters around that, so it is open for interpretation.
DeBrincat had 60, so he's probably good for 80.
Yeah. So my prediction is, I think the Blackhawks are going to be in the bottom of the Central. 8 teams make the playoffs. There are 8 teams in the Central, and you can't tell me on paper that the Blackhawks are better than 7 of them. They might be better than 1 of them, and that's about it. They're just not there. The Jets are better than they are. The Avalanche are better than they are. The Stars are better than they are. Utah Hockey Club could be better than they are. I mean, that's actually, that a lot of people think they could. They've got a good young core sleepers. The Preds are totally reloaded. The Blues, maybe. I don't know. I think the Blues are actually set up for a bit of a stinker this year. And I hope the Wild are. And I hope that they have a terrible season because they've become kind of our Twitter nemesis just based on the Calder race. I guess my bold predictions are that Alex Vlasic will have a better plus minus than Brock Faber this year. I'm throwing it out there to my mini fans because you guys care about plus minus. You're the only ones that care about plus minus. Alex Vlasic is going to take a massive leap forward towards, towards the betterment of his career. He doesn't have to worry about his contract right now. They signed that extension. It's a great contract for both sides. I think he's going to have a hell of a year. And I think they're going to put him in more positions to succeed because they don't, if they do move Korchinski up and down a little bit, then Vlasic can really extend and develop as a hockey player for someone who's ready to do it. That's one. And this is bold. I think the 19-year-old Connor Bedard is going to score 40. I'm going there.
I don't think it's that bold, but
yeah, good. No, I mean, I think, we don't
all around.
Yeah, I mean, we've talked about the Hawks all night, and we haven't mentioned their superstar really that much. But I am so it's still going to be the Connor Bedard night every night, at least for my viewing. I'm using eye language, but when I watch, my eyes will drift towards my phone and in other directions. But when he is on the ice, I will be absolutely glued just to see what he does this year in his sophomore campaign. After a year of being, playing with some really low level NHL talent and being undersized and underdeveloped, it was not easy for him. And it could be a lot more special just to watch him this year. So anyway,
let's building off of that. Let's have a group prediction here. Everybody can go around. Andy, we know what your answer is, but let's say over under 36.5 for Bedard.
I say yeah.
Over,
yeah.
Yeah, I think that's an easy over.
Ray's thinking about it.
Oh,
I was thinking that Bedard would score 40 before Taylor Hall scored 40. Played 40. But 36.5.
Nope.
I would probably say over. Yeah.
I guess I'll be the lone guy that goes under. I'll say he's in that 34, 35, 36 range.
Yeah, it's close. He's got some guys that can get him the puck now. He's got some guys that can play with, and he doesn't get hurt again if he only plays 50 games. All bets are off. But if he plays 80 games, I think he's pretty close.
I think with that too, though, to your point, since he has more guys to play with, he doesn't have to always be the finisher too. He can lean into that playmaking a little bit more, and guys will be able to finish. I mean, how many times did we see last year where he made a really nice play setting somebody up wide open on the back door, and the puck ended up in the corner?
Right. But to think, 14 more, in 10 more games, he's 18, 19. I mean, like you said, he's very close to that 36.
And then what's his point total then?
Because he was at 61 last year. If we're saying he has better forwards, Eric set the over-under at his point total.
Let's say 80.
Last season, he played 68 games.
Yeah, let's set the line at 84.5.
I'm going to say under.
I'm going to go over.
Yeah, I'm going to go with Andy here. I'm going over. I mean, he was point per game with garbage around him. Not saying it's a lot better this year, but it is objectively a little better. Yeah, I think that's all he needs.
Definitely better than Andy's internet.
Yeah, it's the computer. It's not the internet. Don't even know if anybody can hear me right now. But.
Listen, viewers, if you want to donate to the Andy Campbell new laptop.
Hey, I talked to IT. It's on the way. All right. I'm a little
There's
beat
a
up.
link in our website. Please go to the rink.com.
Was it your IT? No, I think 84 was the over-under.
84.5. Yep.
I would probably say over. I think if he plays 80 games, I think he gets to 84 this year. I do.
That's fair. Yeah, I'll go over. I'll say my stat line for him is 36, 49, 85.
Okay.
Yeah, I think that's fair.
I like it. Well, I can't see myself. I don't know. Can anyone hear me right now?
Yep.
Yeah, we can hear you.
Oh, that's cool. Good. Any final shots, boys, before we approach the hour here? And Prospect Camp has day 2 tomorrow.
Yeah.
I have a shout out, but I'll
Wait.
Do it.
Almost.
All right, so I know
You congratulated Gate on his wedding anniversary. Congratulating my parents, 43 years today.
Woo!
Congratulations, Mom and Dad, on their
Nice.
43rd wedding anniversary.
That's awesome.
Absolutely.
Congrats, Mom and Dad Fitzgerald. Very, very exciting stuff.
Absolutely.
Cool. All right, folks. Well, we were going to go around the league, but we want to keep this to an hour. So maybe in our next show, we'll talk about the league a little bit. We'll talk about the lawsuits with the CHL, about the NCAA eligibility. That's something we want to tap into, and we're going to have a number of different topics as we move ahead. But in the interest of the time and also my computer, might be a good time to wrap it up. So welcome back, folks. Good to see you all. Good to see you, Ray.
Good to hear you.
Yeah. Good to hear you.
You see,
Anyway, I'll be off the IR next time around. On behalf of Ray, Eric, Sean, Jimmy, thanks for listening, everybody. Thanks for dealing. And go Hawks. Big season ahead. Take care and have a good night.
absolutely.